San Antonio just became the fastest growing city in the entire country once again, and in this video we're going to talk about the exact reasons why that happened, in addition to going through some of those negatives that we're going to hit at the very end. One of those reasons is the massive property taxes that we have here in San Antonio and in Texas as a whole, but I'm also going to tell you why that soon may flip right on its head and might become a positive for San Antonio. So stick around and let's get right into it right now. So in 2023, San Antonio had a whopping 22,000 people move to it, which is more than any other city in the entire United States of America. Okay, so that is just massive. Some of the reasons we're going to talk about, like some of the major statistical reasons like real estate and then the job growth specifically, but we're also going to talk about some of the underlying reasons that somebody like myself, who's a local here in San Antonio, can actually give you some of the real reasons that people actually choose to move here. And this goes into the location, schools, lifestyle of living here, along with all of that, believe it or not, even though it's summer right now and it's really hot, it actually feels really nice here. The weather is actually a big reason that a lot of people move here, so we're going to talk about that too. So without further ado, let's get into why the location is so perfect. So in case this is your first time seeing one of my videos, let me give you a quick introduction on myself. My name is Michael McCall. I've lived here my entire life outside of being in college for a few years. I'm raising my family here. My entire family is living here. My wife's family lives here, and we love it here. We'll never move anywhere else. One of the biggest things that I like to talk about in these videos is that I have a kind of unique perspective being a local and being here for such a long time that I can talk about its growth from the early stages to now, and I can tell you all the ins and outs of why the locals love it here so much. I've done a few videos and everything about things that are good and bad about San Antonio, the pros and cons of living in San Antonio, like this video right here. I've also talked about the negatives of San Antonio, so there's a lot of those kind of videos that are on this channel, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see more of those. But those things are kind of what I'm going to wrap into a bigger picture to show you why there's so many people moving to San Antonio right now and right here in this current environment that we're in. There's lots of things going on in the economy, there's lots of things going on in real estate, and lots of changes going on in the world as a whole. So all of those things kind of tie together for why all these people are moving here right now, and that's what we're going to continue to talk about right now. So first, let's talk about the location. So basically South Central Texas, one of the most prime reasons that people love this area is because the weather is so much better than everywhere else. You're not at the coast where you have this crazy humidity or hurricane risk. Same thing with Houston. Houston is just ridiculously humid. You have hurricane potential, it floods all the time. Dallas up north has tornadoes, really bad storms, a lot colder up there. Austin gets a little bit more of the hailstorms. Those hailstorms that come through, we get those occasionally, but they typically stay kind of in the hill country areas like north of town. There's not as many that come through. I do see a lot more of those go through Austin than they go through here. We're also really close to the coast, so just a couple hours drive to get down to the beach, which is really, really nice, and it's just easy to get around. Go to Houston a couple hours, Dallas takes a few hours, Austin's really close. I mean, a lot of people that are leaving Austin are actually moving here because it's still really close to Austin, and they can still enjoy Austin without living in the craziness that is now Austin, aka California 2.0. So you have a lot of benefits for the San Antonio location, and people that say that it is super humid, it does get humid, don't get me wrong, but it's not anything like what I think a lot of people expect. It's a lot more bearable outside of those 105-degree days that we get in July and August, which are coming up right now. But outside of that, so many good things to talk about with the location. When it comes to schools, you have a ton of good school districts, and most of the good school districts are typically in the areas that are seeing the most growth. So you look out on like the far west side, northwest, where a lot of that new development is going up. You've got Northside ISD over there, and then you going up north, you get Bernie up in that direction. Bernie ISD is one of the most outstanding school districts. A ton of people want to live there, one of the great suburbs of San Antonio. Northeast ISD, like Stone Oak area, kind of northeast, north central, has some of the best schools when you look at Johnson and Reagan high schools and all the schools that feed into there. You also have some other outstanding suburbs. You also have Comelt ISD and then Medina Valley ISD. Medina Valley is kind of out on the west side. Castroville is where those school districts are, and it's kind of a little bit further out west on the outer edges of some of that development on the far west side. And then you can't forget Alamo Heights ISD. Alamo Heights is dead center San Antonio, really close to where we're at the Pearl right now. Right now, if you're wondering where all these backdrops are, this is the Pearl district. So if you want a really cool place to go walk around, the Pearl's the place to be. Alamo Heights is really close to here. It's actually one of the top rated districts in all of Texas. Very, very, very well known, but very expensive to get in there. We're not going to talk about that in this video. That'll be to another video. But overall, schools in general have really, really good ratings, and you have a lot of options whenever it comes to that too, with the different areas that you're looking at, and all of them are super affordable for the most part, other than say Bernie, which is, and Alamo Heights really is, which is more of the more expensive areas, I guess. And now for the last kind of little local point is the lifestyle. So when it comes to San Antonio, it has and always will be, in my opinion, kind of a big city that still feels like a small town. So you have kind of that country feel. I mean, we got the rodeo and everything that comes here. You got rodeos in other places, but it's just different here. You have a lot of super friendly people. When you're driving through the city, it is not that difficult. Sure, we have some pretty bad traffic, especially in the construction areas, but it has 1.5 million people here. Well, I mean, you're gonna have that, but it's not like you get whenever you go to Dallas or Austin or Houston. I mean, it takes you 2-3 hours to get across some of those areas in certain times. Even Austin, it's a lot smaller. Houston and Dallas are just such huge areas that it takes forever to get across those cities. Austin's a little bit smaller, but the traffic there is just absolutely miserable. When it comes to San Antonio, I'll give you a quick example. I live about 20 miles outside of town on 4 acres. We built a custom house. To get all the way across town to Bernie, it takes me right over an hour, even in like 5 o'clock traffic. So it is not a hard drive at all to get around San Antonio. There's some of those little neighborhoods, especially on the west side, that has some pretty bad traffic, especially during those rush hour and peak traffic times. But overall, this is not like your typical concrete jungle of a huge, massive city. I mean, we are the 7th largest city in the country, and to be able to say this about the 7th largest city in the country is just insane. And in fact, we're actually getting ready to be, probably in the next few years, going to be the 6th largest country, because Philadelphia, who isn't the 6th largest right now, is actually losing people. I think they lost like 50,000 people last year. Anyways, that's beside the point. San Antonio has super, super friendly people too, from all walks of life. That is one of the great things about this area, is the diversity that is of the people that are here. Everybody waves at you when you're driving down the street. Everybody will talk to you. I've had several people, as we're walking around the Pearl, ask if we needed help finding anything as we're talking about where we're going to shoot these videos. So it's a really cool environment to be in. And if you are moving here, I would highly recommend that you adopt some of that good old Texas hospitality, but that's your decision on that. But it's a nice way to live. So now let's get into the real statistical, kind of the number crunching reasons with the real estate and the job growth that San Antonio is seeing, which is why I think these are the real reasons that San Antonio is growing so dramatically, but also one of the reasons why I think that San Antonio might stop growing here in the near future. So let's get into that now. So Texas has always been a very business-friendly environment, and Chief Executive Magazine has actually named Texas the most business-friendly state for 19 years in a row now. Last year, as a whole, Texas had a 3.5% unemployment rate, which is pretty good, granted, as a whole on the country. But San Antonio actually had a 3.3% unemployment rate, so even lower than the entire state of Texas did as a whole. So looking at the growth and where the growth came from, San Antonio added 36,000 new jobs last year, where Texas added 369,000. So roughly 10% of those jobs came from San Antonio. And if you look at other states and compare San Antonio to other states, we added 36,000 jobs. The state of Alabama had less than that. The state of New Mexico had less than that. The state of Utah had less than that. The state of Idaho had less than that. Now, granted, these are not like always known for being, big, heavy growth states other than Idaho. I mean, you have Boise, Idaho up there, which is one of the fastest growing cities during the pandemic. And you don't have as much growth in those entire states as you do in San Antonio. So you have a ton of growth. You have a lot of new big employers coming here. Toyota is going to be expanding its footprint that it already has for its manufacturing facility in San Antonio. And then JCB Manufacturing, which is a big, heavy construction equipment manufacturing company, which Caterpillar already has a big presence here. JCB is building several 100,000 square foot manufacturing plant. They're going to add 1,500 jobs to the south side of San Antonio. You also have the Joint Base San Antonio, the military presence, along with major employers we already have, like HEB, USAA, Valero. You've got medical, the huge medical centers that we have that serve all of South Texas. You also have education, which is huge. I mean, you have all of these industries that have kept San Antonio super stable, and that's not even accounting the tourism industry. The jobs that we actually added, forgot to mention, the major jobs, or the majority of those jobs were hospitality, utilities, and professional services. So professional services is kind of vague, but again, not even including some of the major industries like the military and medical in San Antonio that we already have. So looking at jobs, I mean, those 36,000 jobs, that's going to bring a lot of people here to San Antonio. Now, finally, let's talk about real estate. But before we get straight into that, so like I mentioned, guys, my name is Michael McCall. I run the Life in San Antonio, Texas home group here in San Antonio. We've helped hundreds of people just like you move to San Antonio. So if you have any thoughts at all about moving here, if you have any questions, you want to look at new construction, resales, commercial, whatever it is, reach out to us. My information is right here and down below. Whether you're moving here in 2 days or 2 years, you can reach out to us. We can answer any of your questions you have about San Antonio, get on call and discuss your move and figure out the best plan of action for y'all moving forward. We would love to help you guys make San Antonio your new home and be part of the reason that San Antonio is growing so much right now. San Antonio has always been the epitome of affordable real estate. That's one of the main reasons that people, of course, look to move here, especially if you're working remote and you can kind of pick where you want to live. You pick a really nice area that's really affordable. I mean, San Antonio has some just amazing houses and new construction at that is like half the price of a lot of these places around the country that are struggling to keep people right now. You have a $302,000 median price point in San Antonio right now. You have in Austin, just up the road, $580,000. So that's why a lot of people are leaving Austin too. Houston is next most affordable at $335,000, and then Dallas is at $390,000. So I mean, you can see San Antonio is way more affordable than a lot of these places. The majority of our homes actually are selling in the range of like $250,000 to like $325,000. So if you're looking for an extremely affordable house, first-time home buyer, you know, just looking for something that's maybe a little bit more affordable lifestyle, then this is a really great place to look at. And while we're on the topic of new construction, that is one of the biggest drivers, in my opinion, of this growth. So the real estate itself, new construction everywhere. Right now, interest rates are extremely high for resale homes. You're looking at around a 7% interest rate as the market rate right now for a conventional loan. If you're looking at VA, you can get a little bit less, but the biggest driver for these new construction homes is that they are offering some crazy incentives, buying down these interest rates down into, you know, around 5%, sometimes even less than 5%, giving you all of your closing costs covered. I mean, they're giving people, and I've had some that have gotten $40,000 to $50,000 all in once you account for what they're paying to buy the interest rate down and then the closing costs that they're paying. So you have these builders that are just flat out giving people $50,000 to buy their houses. It's really hard to pass up in a lot of cases, especially if you're a VA buyer moving here for, you know, transferring here, or even just retired and you want to move here now. San Antonio and Texas as a whole, you're 100% disabled vet, you pay no property taxes. You also get homestead exemptions with these VA, benefits if you're slightly, if you're not 100% disabled, but if you have a disability rating. But these VA buyers in certain cases can buy a brand new home for $0 out of pocket. It's very, very, very affordable when it comes to all of that stuff. Overall, looking at the number of homes that have sold in San Antonio, we currently have 3,100 new homes for sale and 6,100 resale homes for sale. Homes that sellers are selling that they're lived in, they're pre-owned homes essentially. When it comes to looking at which ones are actually selling, in the last 6 months, there have been 5,200 new homes that have sold and only 7,100 resale homes. So those new homes are selling close to twice as quickly as the resale homes. So keep that in mind too. If people are moving here, I mean, especially for me, my clients that are moving here, a lot of them are looking at the new construction. There's ways to go into these resale homes and get them to buy down the interest rate too. You can get seller concessions. We can figure out what the max allowable is, and they'll give you those concessions to be able to get those homes sold. Because as you can see, it's a lot harder market right now for those resale homes than it is for new homes. But those, in my opinion, because San Antonio has so many new homes for sale, that is what is driving our market now. A lot of people are going to say, hey, all these new builders, they're driving the prices down. Well, that's not the case either. The new homes have actually went down after 2022 when the interest rate spiked. The rates went down or went up, and then they immediately started dropping their prices from those peaks that they had at that time. They have since started going up on those prices already. I mean, there's been times where I've had people looking at houses and they tell us, hey, you need to buy this house this week because this weekend we're raising the price, we're increasing it by 2%. And they're not negotiating a whole lot on those prices. They'll negotiate some on those concessions, but the prices pretty much where they're at. I mean, they're not really negotiating a ton on those prices. So something to keep in mind for you guys. The other thing that I think is going to maybe potentially hurt us, though, when we're talking about some of these negatives now, let's get into that. when it comes to the real estate, especially the new home starts in San Antonio are significantly lower than what you have in Dallas and Houston. They're slightly higher than what you have in Austin, but the builders are not building as many homes, nearly as many homes as you have in Houston and in the Dallas area. So I think that if that doesn't change, I mean, there's going to be an increase in price. An increase in price if those, there's not as much inventory as just a supply and demand factor. So when you have that increase in price, San Antonio as a whole doesn't have this big, vibrant, super high active community and city life that Houston and Dallas and Austin have. And that's one of the reasons why people don't move here. They usually move to those places if they want that kind of big city lifestyle. San Antonio doesn't have a whole lot of that. We got plenty to do, trust me, but it's just not nearly as much as those areas. So the real estate having lower supply is going to potentially increase the prices, which could potentially, long term, I think, eliminate maybe that affordable aspect of San Antonio. We're at 300,000 right now. We're about 10% below what some of these other areas are. But I think that if you look at it long term, that might potentially change just because we don't have as much inventory. So that's going to have to change, I think, to compensate and kind of keep people coming here. But overall, realistically, I don't think any of that is changing. If you're looking for a big city lifestyle, you're going to go to Houston, Dallas, or Austin no matter what. But there are still so many people right now that are looking for that kind of slower pace, better quality of life. Maybe got a family that they want to raise, and so they're looking for these areas. But again, there's people from all walks of life. There's single couples that are childless couples that are moving here. There's single guys, single girls moving here. Living downtown. I mean, everywhere around San Antonio has a place for pretty much everybody, and that is what has been driving so much growth into this area. And now lastly, let's talk about these property taxes. So historically, that has been the biggest objection that I've had to people whenever they've called wanting to move to San Antonio, is that the property taxes in Texas are just unbelievable. And they'll look at places like Houston and Dallas and see that some of those property taxes in certain neighborhoods over there are over 3%, which is just insane to me. Here in San Antonio, average is around 2.3 to 2.4%. We have some of the more popular new build neighborhoods that have what we call the mud tax, where they've tacked on, in addition to, you get out in the suburbs, you have a lower property tax rate. So instead of the lower 1.8% tax rate that some of those areas have, you tack on an additional tax rate. So some of those in the past have been 2.6, 2.7%. Well, I'll tell you about my house in particular. We've had it for 2.5 years now. The property taxes, ever since we have bought it, every single year, we started at 2.13, we went down to 2.05, we went down to 1.97, and then down into the 1.8s this year. We've gone down every single year that we've owned the house because the school district has actually lowered their tax rate, and they're like 60 to 70% of the overall property tax burden that you have. That actually has been happening across the board. You have Bernie ISD, you have Comal ISD, are just two other examples that I know about that have dropped their tax rate. So Esperanza, where it used to be a 2.6% tax rate because of the mud tax, is now 2.3. Neighborhood in Bulverde, Copper Canyon, it was always been super affordable, but now it's in the 1.5% range because of their property tax being decreased by Comal ISD, which is absolutely insane, and it's starting to completely eliminate that objection from people's minds. So the property taxes are going to get lower. Texas as a whole has always been friendly whenever it comes to taxes, no income tax here. So all those reasons are reasons that people are moving here. I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. I think that if you look at it on a long-term basis, even these other little negatives that I mentioned are not really big negatives that I think is going to keep people away. So you look at it, San Antonio is going to continue to grow. And if you want to know more about San Antonio as a whole, take a look at this video right here, which is pros and cons of moving to San Antonio if you haven't already, and take a look at this one right here, which talks about the negatives of San Antonio, which it's always good to know the negatives, you know what you're getting yourself into, but this isn't a big negative reason for not moving to San Antonio. So until the next video, guys, we will see you there.